When any decent person experiences injustice, they become infuriated. It's a natural reaction. Unfortunately, injustice is rampant around us, and we can spend our life being infuriated. We just experienced something which, to me, was a great injustice. The surviving family members of the Israeli athletes who were murdered at the Olympics in 1972 requested many times, and especially this year, the 40th anniversary commemoration of the death of their loved ones, they asked for a moment of silence. That's all they wanted, a moment of silence, but it was turned down. Despite the fact that the Olympic Committee were the ones who denied Israel in 1972 of providing their own security for their athletes. And then, after the terrorists attacked, refused the Israelis from handling the situation. And despite all that, they were refused a single moment of silence. So how do we respond to such a situation? When we look back in history, we know one thing: this has been happening for over 2,000 years. We've been infuriated by the fact that the Jewish people are always held to a completely different standard than anyone else in the world. And we become infuriated. But that has never helped. So what is the response to such a situation? Well, perhaps we can suggest a godly perspective and a godly response to this type of a situation. Interestingly, in 1972, a few months before the Munich Olympics, the Lubavitcher Rebbe was celebrating his 70th birthday. The president of Israel at that time, President Shazar, called up the Israeli ambassador to Washington, to the United States, and asked him to represent the president of Israel himself and all of the Jewish people in the land of Israel in going to the Rebbe and wishing him a happy birthday on their behalf. And so the ambassador to the United States, the Israeli ambassador, who was none other than Yitzhak Rabin, traveled in 1972 to Brooklyn, New York to convey these wishes. And when he came in to the Rebbe's office, he sat down for a fascinating conversation which they both had together. And as he described, Yitzhak Rabin described, one of the topics that they discussed was a topic that the Rebbe raised with him, based on a verse in the Torah which says, Hein am levadod yishkon. This was a prophecy that God put into the mouth of the Gentile prophet Bilaam when he was attempting to curse the Jewish people. And only blessings poured out of his mouth. And one of those statements was, behold, the Jewish people are a lonely people. And so the Rebbe asked Yitzhak Rabin, are you lonely in Washington, the only Jewish ambassador? And then the Rebbe posed a question to Yitzhak Rabin, and he said, why is it, in fact, that the Jewish people are a lonely people? Is it because the Jewish people choose to be a lonely people, or is it because it's imposed upon us from the nations around us? And the Rebbe responded to his own question, and he said, in fact, both are true. The reason why we are a lonely people is because we have a value system which comes from the Torah. We abide by the ways and the laws of the Torah. We follow the spirit that the Torah teaches us, and that makes us unique and different. Hence, we make ourselves a lonely people. And yet, we also find that with our assimilation, the nations around us insist that we are different. And even when we may forget that we are different and lonely, they remind us that we are a lonely people. And so we choose to be lonely, and so it is imposed upon us. Well, perhaps we can give some thought to this message and understand that after over 2,000 years of our current exile, or over 3,300 years since the Torah has been given to us, we have discovered one thing, that as much as we may not enjoy being a lonely people, if we don't choose to be the unique people who we are, the nations around us will always hold us to a different standard and remind us that we are a lonely people. And so perhaps the greatest response that we can have to the world when they insist that we be held to a different standard is not give them that opportunity. And the way we do that is by making ourselves the lonely people we were meant to be. In fact, when the prophet Bilaam said, Hein am levadod yishkon, behold, you are a lonely people, God was telling us that we should make ourselves the unique people we were meant to be. And it is true that it makes us lonely. Every unique, special person is lonely. Every leader is lonely. Every president is lonely. Anyone that takes a position in life is lonely. But it's much better to make ourselves lonely than to have it imposed from those around us. And so the message is, let us not wait for the world to remind us we are a lonely people. Let us remind ourselves of who God has made us to be. Let us live up to those requirements. We may still be lonely, but we'll be a happy, lonely people.